I too would like to just take a couple moments and also do an acknowledgement of country. I'm lucky enough to have come to Australia from South Africa, and every single day I acknowledge the beauty of country, driving over the Swan River, being able to go for a surf at Trig, seeing the beautiful hills of Kalamunda. And I'd like to pay my respects to elders past and present, and in particular to elders that will be emerging. I think acknowledging culture is so important, and being part of an Australia moving forward, I wish to acknowledge the culture continually over my lifetime. So today, a few weeks ago, I was asked to set the scene of what today is really about, and as Denver mentioned, it's inclusion in a changing world. And one of the things I want to touch on is the dynamics of what that changing world looks like. So I was really excited, and I thought, great. After Amy asked me to present, I started furiously writing a whole bunch of topics down on paper. Slept on it, woke up the next morning, read it, and thought, geez, Adam, this is rubbish, and chucked that in the bin. Then calmed down a little and started writing a bit of a second draft. And I read it to my wife that evening, and she said, I said, hey, Em, what do you think? And she goes, it's good, but instead of trying to articulate a whole bunch of really complex information, why don't you just talk about your experience over the past 2 years and reflect on things over the past few months in particular? And that's exactly what I'm going to do today. I had a interactive activity planned where everyone would have a A4 piece of paper, they'd write what inclusion means to them, they'd make it into a paper aeroplane and then chuck it across the room, and everyone would pick up a different aeroplane and read what inclusion is. And I was going to highlight what diversity is. Everyone's thoughts would be different, but really what inclusion means, that ethos of what it means to everyone. But because of COVID, we would have had to sanitize every single plane as soon as it left your hand. So COVID ensured the paper aeroplane stayed grounded. So what I'm going to do is reflect a little bit. And those of you that may know Inclusion Solutions, our scope of work is very broad. It can be, developing an integrated soccer league for kids with and without disabilities to be club-owned with stakeholders like Manchester United. It could be finding employment opportunities, open employment opportunities for people with disabilities. It could be working with older adults, people that are at risk of social isolation in retirement, and connecting people to their local community, their local clubs and groups, where they can find that sense of belonging and really gift their time and talents to clubs and groups that need support now more than ever. And what that made me realize is, yes, no two projects are the same, but no two days, no two mechanisms, no two outcomes, and no two gauges of success are the same either. And that really made me think about the work that we are involved in and how there is no roadmap, there is no blueprint for the work that we do, and neither should there be. There's best practice, there's great theories, but there's no blueprint for the way and working within the inclusion space. And there's huge opportunity in that. We now have this opportunity to take the "this is how it's been done before" rule book and chuck it out of the window. We have this opportunity to change the rhetoric of participation is inclusion, segregation is inclusion, project delivery is inclusion, and really say, are we aiming too low? Now, one of the things, and I do not want to sound like a LinkedIn post, so I'm very conscious about that, but this, a quote from somebody a lot smarter than me said, aim for the moon and you'll fall amongst the stars. Aim for the stars and you'll fall amongst the clouds. Aim for the clouds and you'll fall into the sky. Aim for the sky and you'll hit the ceiling. I want you to think about that just for a moment. We are living in a changing world, an evolving world, a world that is uncertain in a lot of ways. And we're in this place where we're able to focus on some really important issues that have been on the back burner for far too long. We have this opportunity now to recalibrate, to reprioritize, and to really think, okay, as a Western culture, we've been doing a whole bunch of things really well, but what we've also maybe done is really neglect some of the fundamental attributes that are the true gauges of success. How we treat people, and how we can use our circumstances to improve the lives of others. Now, one of the things that I continually thought about when we were talking about inclusion in a changing world, the more I fundamentally believe that inclusion can change the world, can change the way that we operate. And I'm conscious I'm standing up here as a white male that has had very little barriers to inclusion in my life. And I also understand that I've been afforded privileges that many are not afforded throughout the world. But I also know that I'm able to use those privileges because the intent, the ethos, and most importantly, the actions that we show today are going to influence the next generation. And that's going to trickle down to the generation after them. Which really made me think about something that on my first day at Inclusion Solutions 2 and a bit years ago now, I had my induction, and the wonderful Denver de la Cruz called me into his office, and what we did is he said, "Adam, have you thought about legacy?" And I understood what the word meant, and I'd never really put it into context of the work that we do out in community. And one of the things that he said that was really profound is he said, "We do the work that we do to know that we have made a difference for good when we are gone." I was like, geez, man, that's a bit heavy on your first day. But nonetheless, it really did strike a chord. I went home, I looked at my two beautiful girls. I had a newborn at that point, and I thought, geez, I want Audrey and Malia, my two little ones, to really be proud of their dad. And that's not because of the things that we own or the things that I have, but I want them to be proud of their dad because of the things that I've done. I'm going to ask everyone to indulge me for a moment, and in a moment I'm going to ask everyone to close their eyes. If you don't feel comfortable, by all means, please, you do not have to do this by any means. It will make the next minutes a little more interesting. But what I'm going to ask is if everyone could close their eyes now, keep them closed for a little while. I'd like everyone just to take a deep breath. Relax your shoulders. Feel comfortable within your seat. And I'm going to ask everyone just to visualize for a moment. I would like you to think about the first meaningful time you were included. I know it's broad. It could be back when you were a child. It could be more recently. The first meaningful time you were included. Now, what I'd like you to think about is the personal people that helped you in that situation. The person or the people that helped you in that situation. I'd like you to think of their name. Think of their face. Think of their smile. And I want you to think about the feelings you had in that situation. How that situation made you feel. Any lessons that you learned. And if that had a part of shaping who you are today. Now I'd like everyone to open their eyes. Every single person's memory and situation that they had in their mind in this room will be completely unique, which shows the power of diversity. But that feeling that I hope everyone felt in the room would have had huge similarities, that feeling of inclusion. Now that person's face who you had in your mind, or those people's faces you had in your mind, the names that you had on the tip of your tongue, those were agents of change. And I want everyone in this room to ask themselves one question. Do you want to be remembered as an agent of change now and for the next generation? Up on the screen, you have a great person reading another great person's book. And something Mahatma Gandhi said, again, not to sound like a LinkedIn post, is be the change you want to see in the world. Be the change you want to see. Be the change you want to see with one person, with two people, where you work, friends, family, your community. Because every single person in this room has the potential and the power to be an agent of change. Be the superhero. Be the person that stands up for what you know is right. Let's change the world with inclusion. Through the thoughts we have, the things we say, and most importantly, through the things that we do. And at the very least, let's aim for the stars. Today, you are going to hear from some incredible agents of change that have used their situations to improve the lives of others and really understand what the benefit and support community can offer. I'd like to thank everyone for listening to me today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your morning.